Hey there guys, Nordic Warrior here, back with another video. So yeah, today is Sunday, and I wanted to talk about the fight that took place last night. We had a really good fight between Sergey Boachuk and Virgil Ortiz Jr. Virgil Ortiz winning by a highly controversial decision. Wanted to talk about it now. I unfortunately wasn't able to catch the fight live because I was working today, so I had to go to bed. I mentioned that on my live stream that I made yesterday. But those of you who had spoke to me in the build-up to this fight will know I really couldn't pick a winner going into this fight. When it was first scheduled, I favoured Sergey Boachuk initially. However, as the fight got closer, my mind kept changing from one day to the next. And my overall rationale behind it was that Virgil Ortiz may have been the more talented fighter. I felt he was faster, more explosive, a little bit quicker, a little bit more unorthodox, and I just felt that he brought a little bit more to the table in terms of physical talent and athleticism. But Sergey Boachuk was the more well-schooled of the two. You know, better boxing fundamentals, better technique, just a little bit more consistent, and he was the slightly bigger of the two, and he was, despite having shown his vulnerabilities in the past, he was a guy who I felt had learned from his mistakes. And he was also a lot more established at the division. You know, Virgil Ortiz is a guy whose best days was at welterweight, when he had a significant size advantage over most of his opponents. But that, of course, ultimately cost him in the long run because he was dangerously dehydrating and draining himself to make weight. And he ended up with some serious health problems as a result of it. And those health problems, as I've talked about many times in the build-up, they were constantly playing on my mind. And I kind of felt that they would make him very vulnerable going into the fight. And I sat down to watch the fight when I got in, and that became apparent to me very early on, because what I noticed about Virgil Ortiz was that not only does he still have these health problems, not only is he still very vulnerable, but I noticed that Virgil Ortiz appears to have regressed in terms of his technique and his boxing skills, because I gotta be honest guys, he looked very poor in this fight. Now, it was a very competitive fight. Virgil Ortiz definitely had his moments. He showed flashes of the old Ortiz, but I felt that for the most part, Boachuk was in control. You know, I mentioned how Boachuk had the better boxing fundamentals. He stamped his authority on the fight right away in the first round. He came out fighting behind a guard, using a good jab behind that high guard, backing Virgil Ortiz up. And I think he noticed very early on that Virgil Ortiz has some fundamental flaws, because when he throws a jab, he doesn't bring it back to his chin, and he doesn't really keep his right hand reactive to block punches and parry them away. Instead, Virgil will just throw the jab and then drop it to the hip or bring it back to his chest, and that left him wide open for the counter straight right hand. And Boachuk was landing that punch almost immediately. In the first round, he found a home for it, and he dropped Virgil in the first round with a very clean, very accurate, very fast, very well placed straight right hand bang on the chin. And Harvey Dark, of course, being a very corrupt bent referee, just decided to wave it off and rule it a slip, even though it was a very clear knockdown. That kind of set the tone for the fight, because it was very clear from that point on that Virgil Ortiz was supposed to win. He was the A side. You know, Golden Boy, who were promoting the show, I believe, clearly had his back. And clearly they've got long-term plans for him, because he got all the benefit of the doubt the entire fight. He was also knocked down in the mid-portion of the fight by a counter left hook. And all through the fight, like I said, although Virgil did have his moments and flashes of the old Virgil, I just felt that all through the fight, Boachuk was landing the cleaner, more accurate, more effective punches. Even when Boachuk would get hit and get staggered, he was keeping his hands up, he was maintaining his balance, and he was riding out the storm. And I felt that Boachuk, to me, he just seemed to be in control in there. You know, he was never badly hurt at any stage of the fight. He was never knocked down. Virgil was never able to get him under control. He was never able to intimidate him. I just felt that Boachuk, to me, like I said, with his high guard, his jab, his boxing fundamentals, his straight right hand, his timing, he was just a superior technician in there. and I felt that he got his tactics right. And yeah, I thought he won the fight. I thought he controlled the fight. I thought he won the fight pretty clearly. What was really funny to me though was we got the classic desperate commentary from DAZN. It was really funny to me how DAZN, I believe it was DAZN anyway, that they were commentating on the fight. They were desperate, absolutely desperate to convince people that Virgil was winning, and they were desperate to convince people that the work that Virgil was doing was a lot more effective than it was, because basically Boachuk would be landing the jab, he'd be landing the straight right hand, he'd be landing his hooks, his uppercuts, he would be snapping Virgil's head back all over the place, and then Virgil would land like a big clubbing shot that would maybe hit the guard or maybe land on the body or something, and the commentators would start freaking out, again desperately trying to convince you that it was more effective than it was. They're like, oh, Boachuk is hurt now, he's hurt, can he finish him, how's he going to deal with this, look, he's winning the fight. It was kind of like they were getting all excited and irate over anything that Virgil did. But anything that Boachuk did was just written off as just an arm punch or an ineffective punch or something like that. And yeah, I thought it was it was actually really funny listening to the commentary. But yeah, it was a good fight. It was a competitive fight. But again, I thought Boachuk was well in control. And I've seen mixed opinions. A lot of people think that Boachuk won clearly, like I do. There's a few people out there who think that it was a fair decision and that Virgil rightfully got the nod, but that he was, or Boachuk was unlucky not to get the first knockdown. Yeah, I thought it was a robbery personally. I'm going to come out and say it. And I think that Virgil, as talented as he is, and he is a talented fighter, I think he got a little bit exposed in there. He's not quite as good as I thought he was, and that's mostly, in my opinion, due to his regression. I think that he has regressed big time, and I think a lot of it has to do with his illness. That rhabdomyosis, whatever it's called, based on the research I've done and based on what I've heard about it, that's not just the kind of thing that you recover from, at least not without an extensive amount of nutrients, if you know what I mean. Like, he would need to gain a lot of weight, he would need to get plenty of rest, he would need to become to change his body composition entirely in order to get over that disease. It's the kind of thing that crossfitters and bodybuilders get when they basically starve themselves and dehydrate themselves, and they're lacking in essential nutrients, and they have very low body fat percentages, and they overtrain and stuff like that. And again, it's just, it's to do with all the time he spent trying to drain himself to get to the welterweight division, and it's taken its toll on his body, unfortunately, and it's done irreparable damage, and I don't think we'll ever see the best version of Virgil Ortiz again. There should be a rematch, because Boachuk was the champion going in, I believe, and I think he was robbed of his title. But I don't have any sympathy for Boachuk. I've said from day one, I'm sick and tired of these Eastern European fighters going over to America and fighting on a bent American show with 3 American judges and an American referee, and then being surprised when they don't get the decision. I mean, the way that Boachuk acted after the fight, shaking his head and smiling, just in disbelief and not getting the decision, I'm like, what did you expect? You're on a Golden Boy card, you're fighting a Mexican in America, the crowd is on his side, you've got DAZN commentators basically spunking up the guy's back every time he does anything, while your work is completely ignored. You've got some ghetto trash American referee who is known for being bent and known for bending over backwards for American-based fighters. What did you think was going to happen? Did you think you were going to get a fair decision on the scorecards? Again, I've had it with these Eastern European boxers. I've had it with them. I'm sick and tired of them, and I've got no sympathy for them anymore. So yeah, look, I'm not saying that he had any choice in the matter. I'm just saying, look, if you're an Eastern European fighter defending your championship in America, you need a knockout. You're not going to get the decision, so you sell out, you put it all on the line, and you get the knockout. Otherwise, you're just conceding defeat. So yeah, disappointing with Boachuk in that sense. So because there was ample opportunity, from what I could see, for him to force a stoppage. Virgil Ortiz was very, very poor defensively, as I mentioned earlier. His punch resistance seems to be gone. And I'm starting to wonder, and call me a cynic here, but I'm starting to wonder if Golden Boy are planning to basically set him up against Terence Crawford. If they're looking to get Terence Crawford that WBC belt. I believe it was the interim belt they fought for, but I'm assuming they're going to somehow swindle their way into getting Virgil Ortiz the full title. And with him having that rhabdomyosis disease, again, whatever you call it, and with him looking very, very chinny and very, very drained and very, very ineffective, and looking like a guy who's regressed physically. I mean, he's the prime candidate for a Terence Crawford opponent, isn't he? Slap a dehydration clause on him, and give Crawford a pair of loaded gloves, and yeah, that's you got a perfect fight for him right there. So, starting to wonder if that's the plan. If they want to make Crawford versus Virgil, because based on what I saw, based on from what I saw from Virgil's performance, that's a mismatch at this point in time. Virgil Ortiz has got a lot of work to do, and as much as I do rate the guy, as much as I think he's talented, I don't see him doing it. I think he's a write-off. I think he got exposed, and I don't think we'll ever see him at elite level again. So, yeah, another robbery in boxing, another situation where you had a guy basically selling out, essentially, going in there to a situation he knew he couldn't win, didn't do what he needed to do to get the win, and I've got no sympathy. You can criticise me for that, but whatever, I got things to do. It was a good fight, I enjoyed it, but the wrong guy got the win, in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think anyway. I'm sure there's people who disagree, that's fine. You don't have to agree with me, what do I know? Thanks for watching, and God bless.